Mental health experts are convinced that one of the long-term consequences of lockdowns during the COVID-19 pandemic is an increase in loneliness. In Britain, communities are trying to combat people's isolation by introducing so-called chatty benches and chatty cafes. Special correspondent Malcolm Brabant reports from Kent.
This bench overlooking the North Sea has a poignant backstory. If you sit down here, you're inviting a conversation, or perhaps making a cry for help.
My husband took his own life in 2019.
Rachel Stone is Ben's widow.
And at the time, there was so many young men in the area, one after the other, who were struggling, who had taken their own lives. And I wanted to do something to help because you feel a bit helpless in a situation like that.
While left to raise two small daughters and her older stepson, Rachel strove to create a legacy for her husband, who was overwhelmed by depression. Just in case no one stops to chat, there's a discreet reminder of a suicide hotline.
If you're feeling desperate and you've got somewhere like this to come and sit, so it takes that one person to stop and just say, are you okay? And if he generally had something like this, then it could have delayed him taking his own life on that day.
20 miles to the south are sheer drops where, over the years, several people have leapt to their deaths. The cliffs no longer have such a grim reputation, thanks in part to a neighbourhood regeneration scheme, including the benches. I've come to Ramsgate, a seaside town some 80 miles southeast of London. This is a chatty bench. It's a glorious sunny day, a real change from the miserable winter that Britain's having. People are out and about. Let's see if anybody wants to talk. The sad truth is I was studiously ignored until David Barber turned up. He's one of the community leaders behind this chatty bench project.
Life is pretty dark, isn't it? It's not exactly a happy place at the moment, the world. And so loneliness spreads, I think.
Exacerbated, Barber says, by an internet full of remote opinions that people post but rarely share in person, face to face. Technology
Hasn't helped. People walk along with their phones, they've got earphones in, they don't want to converse, they don't want to have even eye contact. So the art of conversation is an awful lot less than it used to be.
I don't want fame.
No, if you're good at your art or whatever it is, you've got to let the people see you.
I'd like the money,
Yeah.
but I don't want fame.
Among those who frequent this bench are Lorraine Hudson and Gareth Cox, who come to shoot the breeze.
I think the community spirit has died. There was a time 20, 30 years back, neighbours spoke to each other far more. Doesn't happen now. Partly, I think, is the internet. People have all of their needs in the house, so they don't need to go out and communicate. They don't really go to pubs as much. And that's just isolated everybody, and it's become the norm, which is it's sad, but we all do it.
Yeah, no, I agree, yeah. Everyone's on their phones, they're on the computer, busy working. So it's nice to have places like this where you can sit down, just chill.
Given Britain's inclement climate, the boom in chatty cafes is outpacing chatty benches. Besides conviviality, Whitstable's Revival Cafe offers a low-key mental health safety net.
I think it is a worrying trend in terms of we know the impact of loneliness and isolation isn't good for people's mental health.
Deborah Haylett runs the Revival, which Mind, the mental health non-profit, established as an innovative social enterprise.
We are social animals, that's what we are here for. We are part of families, part of villages, part of tribes, that's who we are. Research shows that social interaction is one of the main ways that you can support your well-being.
I might have an omelette.
Yeah.
Frances Burton-Shaw is a regular at the Chatty Tuesday sessions.
If you sit indoors and you don't talk to anyone, or you're on your own, you go bonkers.
Recent surveys conducted since the COVID pandemic show a consistent rise in loneliness. Overall, 1 in 3 Britons feels lonely. But the surprising thing is that people who are suffering most are young people. A survey conducted in 2023 revealed that amongst those aged between 18 to 24, 3 out of every 5 felt alone and isolated.
I think that particularly is to do with COVID. I think they'd had a lot of disruption in school. They stopped going to after-school clubs. They stopped seeing their friends outside of school, and all of their education was on screens. Their interaction with friends was on screens, and it's naturally just progressed that they carried on in that way, that they've become used to those patterns.
Back along the North Kent coast, Rachel Stone decorates her bench with the international symbol for mental health awareness.
Particularly coming up to Christmas, I think people suffer even more so. It's heightened, isn't it? Because you think everyone around you is having such a lovely time, social media influencers. Having somebody to speak to and just offload to is so important, because bottling everything up, it's one of the worst things you can do, because you're just alone with your thoughts.
Rachel's message is simple: don't walk on by. You might make a small difference. You might even save a life. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Malcolm Brabant in Kent.